Well, we knew we wanted to have a graphically rich game, but we also knew that the load times for CD-ROMs was a huge problem. So how do you load these graphically rich screens and not have really long load times for the user? So we figured that if we had a really small sprite-based character, like a character 1 inch to 2 inches tall on screen, that we could sort of preload the screens based on where the character was moving and such, and what direction he was going in. Could we do a game with an insect? An insect is small. And what would be interesting? And obviously we weren't going to do ladybugs or grasshoppers. We were thinking of things that had some edge to it. Scorpions, although scorpions aren't insects, but spiders. It turned out that we all had some pretty harrowing cockroach stories. The president of Drew Pictures, Drew Huffman, and I both grew up in cockroach-infested households. I lived in New York and in a 2-family house, and at one point in time there were 17 Colombians living above us in a 1-bedroom apartment. So needless to say, it was very noisy up there, but also it was quite squalid, and we had just an incredible cockroach infestation in the house. I mean, I remember routinely waking up at night as a child with cockroaches crawling on my face. They were always in the bathtub, they were always in the kitchen sink, they were in the stove, they were everywhere. I mean, there were just cockroaches all over the place. Drew had several harrowing cockroach stories, but one of the most interesting and hilarious and also disgusting was the fact when he woke up with just an agonizing headache in the middle of the night that he thought was a brain tumor. And he heard this, the way he describes it, like the sound of a kettle drum in his ear. And he was rushed to the hospital by his mother, and in the emergency room they discovered that he had a baby cockroach in his ear. This thing is like microscopically small. It's as big as a pinhead, if you've ever seen a baby cockroach. And this thing was dancing around Drew's eardrum, pounding on it and causing him just great pain. They had to extract this tiny cockroach out of his ear with a crazy forceps or whatever. And we just laughed uproariously at that. And we went around the table that day and everyone in the room had some sort of harrowing cockroach story. I think Drew's infestation might have been a little bit worse than ours. He told a story one time about how he went to the beach with his family on a vacation, to get away from it all. And they took all these wonderful snapshots of the family on the beach, and they were really, quaint, and him and his mom and his brother digging sandcastles and the whole thing. And when they developed the film, this crazy thing happened. There were these silhouettes of cockroaches on the photographs themselves, and they were crystal clear. The cockroaches were living inside of his camera. And every single picture had these silhouettes of cockroaches, sort of bordering these shots of like kids with their arms around each other and laughing and grinning. They've got like popsicles in their hands. It really, I don't think people would even believe it if you put that in a movie. And we began to think, what? All people have had encounters with cockroaches. We realized it was like this universal thing, and it did have the edge we were looking for. It did allow us to use the sort of small sprite kind of thing. And also there were these great urban myths that were circulating then, and I guess still now. After the nuclear holocaust, the only creatures that would survive would be cockroaches, and cockroaches will outlive us all, and there are these miracles of evolution, and we did some research into that. I talked to entomologists at Purdue University who specialize in cockroach abatement, the people up at S.C. Johnson Wax up in Racine, Wisconsin, which make the Raid, the roach spray Raid.
You got to respect these animals. They can take a lot. They're incredibly resilient, and I think that they're gross, but they're also kind of majestic in a way.
Do not fear me, little one.
Remember those Raid commercials with those little cartoony roaches, and they're giggling and laughing and doing all that kind of crazy stuff? I mean, the game was originally going to be this funny thing.
The game was about kind of being gross, and it was meant to be sort of a parody.
And they were going to have characterizations and funny voices, and they were going to just crawl on your toothbrush and gross you out, and they were going to, in a way, it was almost going to be like roaches getting back at man kind of thing.
When Vin and I got involved in it, we took a different approach. We were both big fans of David Lynch, and I think Blue Velvet had just come out, or it was right around that time, and we wanted to make it weird. So we tried to make it dark and creepy, and our overall vibe was, when in doubt, make it strange.
We didn't want this to be a typical game. We always wanted to make a game that was a little bit more mature and that conveyed something a little bit more literate than just, killing dragons or smoting monsters or whatever.
We're both inspired by Kafka's Metamorphosis, about this guy that through some mysterious circumstance gets changed or transformed into a cockroach. We wanted there to be some sort of classic backstory to the whole game. We tied the cockroach to a guy who gets turned into a cockroach. And because of that, we wanted to know why. Why was he turned into a cockroach? What were what's the point of this whole thing? And ultimately, we referred to Joseph Campbell and a hero at the Thousand Faces and put him on a quest.
One of the classic hero's quests is the son's search for the father. He doesn't understand who he is, where he comes from, or how he got the way he was until he turns into a cockroach. As a cockroach, he gets to look at things from a point of view he couldn't look at it from before.